me turn my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo. Where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramos, of course. It is Thursday, so it means time for our Thursday Trends episode. And man, kind of crazy. I was doing the math today because I had a couple meetings and a couple emails I was sending around before we get into trends. Y'all, we have about 2.5 weeks left of Life as a Gringo. 2.5 weeks left. Crazy. That's literally, we have 5 episodes after this one left. And then we put a fork in it. And this chapter ends. Now, I can't give away details, but I'm not going to leave y'all hanging. Something else is coming. That's all I could say for now. Something else is coming. Something I'm really excited about. I feel like the next step of my career in media, the next iteration of, my brain and where I'm at, it's coming. So stay tuned. Thank you for the support. Thank you in advance for the support on the next chapter. With that said, what are we talking about today? Today we're talking about Donald Trump, shocker I know, and him backing down on these China tariffs. We're going to talk about what's happening between the presidents of El Salvador and Venezuela, beefing, Twitter beefing. We're going to talk about marriage, as research has come out against marriage and against it being a positive in today's society. We'll talk about that. Get your thoughts. And lastly, in a positive note for our Mi Gente segment, we will talk about Pedro Pascal, who continues to just be an incredible human being and in his own way taking a stand and fighting for marginalized communities. So we will talk about that. But first and foremost, as we always do, let's start with the nonsense, the BS, in a segment we call For the People in the Back.
Say it louder for the people in the back. Say it louder for the people in the back.
All right, let's first and foremost start with Donald Trump quickly when it comes to these tariffs. Now, Donald Trump said during a White House news conference that high tariffs on goods from China will, quote, come down substantially, but it won't be zero. Donald Trump's remarks were in response to earlier comments on Tuesday by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who said that the high tariffs were unsustainable and that he expects a, quote, de-escalation in the trade war between the world's two largest economies, the U.S. and China. Trump had placed an import tax of 145% on China, which has countered with 125% tariffs on U.S. goods. Trump has placed tariffs on several dozen countries, causing the stock market to stumble and interest rates to increase on U.S. debt as investors worry about slower economic growth and higher inflationary pressures. Now, a couple things here before I get into the next tagline of this story. Tell me you don't know what you're doing without telling me you don't know what you're doing. And this is his presidency in a nutshell. And his followers, his supporters, will find creative ways to flip the script on this and spin it. But the reality is this. He's stabbing in the dark. He's all force, no tact, no strategy. He's basically just playing a big game of fuck around and find out. And unfortunately, you and I are the people who end up being affected by this the most. And again, it's further proof that there was never some grand idea. It was just him having a pissing contest, essentially. Him not knowing what the fuck he's doing, and continuously, time and time again, he does these crazy things only to have to backtrack on them when they inevitably blow up in his face because, once again, he really has no idea what he's doing. Now, 3 of the nation's top retail leaders, Walmart's Doug McMillon, Target's Brian Cornell and Home Depot's Ted Decker met with Trump at the White House to present their case against the administration's proposed tariff policies, advising that tariffs will raise consumer prices and could potentially disrupt retail supply chains and lead to product shortages. No shit. You don't have to be an executive at a major retailer to come to that conclusion. But of course, it doesn't take you and I complaining about this. It takes some rich executives for big brands to ring the alarm and for Trump to listen. Because we live in a world and we live in a country and we have a president who really is only catering to one group of people. He's playing the game and making you think that he gives a shit about people, and he pretends and says all these, these beautiful placating things, but at the end of the day, he is only here to serve the wealthy and only backtracks not when you and I are having issues, but when the wealthy begin to feel uncomfortable. And that's more of what we see here. There's not really anything else to dig into it. It's just another reminder of, A, his ineptitude and the ineptitude of those around him, but B, he's only listening to and his only concern is making the rich happier. Moving on, another story happening. You'll remember that President Bukele from El Salvador is Trump's new best friend. He's the person working with Trump, taking in deportees into a prison in El Salvador. Now he's offering Venezuelan President Maduro a unique proposal, a prisoner swap. President Bukele is offering the Venezuelan deportees sent to El Salvador from the U.S. in exchange for, quote, political prisoners. The Venezuelan government and President Maduro spoke out against this proposal, calling on the release of Venezuelans detained in El Salvador. Speaking on national television, President Maduro of Venezuela spoke out against President Bukele of El Salvador. It's funny, I looked up the pronunciation of this the other day and I can't remember. But Maduro from Venezuela spoke out against this proposal, criticizing the Salvadorian president and calling for an immediate proof of life for those that are currently detained. Additionally, he called for the Salvadorian government to allow attorneys and families to access the prisoners sooner than later, he added, quote, set them free unconditional release for the youth detained in El Salvador. President Maduro has voiced his opinion on the Venezuelans currently being held at Salvadorian prisons. He condemned the detention as kidnapping and forced disappearance of hundreds of Venezuelan nationals sent to El Salvador from the U.S. Additionally, President Maduro of Venezuela has demanded to know the whereabouts and well-being of the Venezuelan nationals. President Bukele responded by offering the prisoner swap once again. And the reason I bring up this story, aside from the disgusting way that people are being weaponized and used as a political tactic now by not just the United States of America, but here in El Salvador, or there in El Salvador, I should say. How is it that the man that was wrongfully sent to El Salvador, it's impossible for them to release him to the custody of the United States, yet it's somehow, some way very easy, and actually the idea of the president of El Salvador, to swap prisoners for other prisoners in Venezuela. Now, I may not be an expert on foreign affairs and immigration laws and all these different things, but it seems like if you're able to release one group of people from your prison, you probably can release one person from your prison to get them on their way home, especially when they're a legal citizen of the United States and the Supreme Court has ruled that they need to be brought back home. So this is all bullshit. And the irony of this, what's also disgusting in that story, and I apologize for watching the video of this, and I'm like rubbing my eyes, allergy season. That's really all I have to say. But the disgusting part about this is what happens when Donald Trump and Fox News and all these followers of MAGA, what they do to sort of erase their own fuck up. And they're the worst kinds of people, because they acknowledged the fuck up. The Supreme Court has ruled they fucked up and they need to return this man back to his family in Maryland. But what are they doing? They're smearing his name in the public and in the press. They're finding ways to try and not only call him, but connect him to the MS-13 gang when there's been no credible evidence shown. So rather than doing what they're supposed to do, their idea of cleaning up their mess is beyond victim blaming, but smearing the name of an innocent man just to make themselves look better in the court of public opinion. It's absolutely disgusting. Again, I think I brought this up in the past. This is why I have a problem with Alex Rodriguez, the baseball player. He got caught with for steroids, and rather than fessing up to it, the tech that took his test, he accused that tech of tampering with the test, and that tech ended up losing their job, only for it to come out later on, and only for Alex Rodriguez to admit later on that, yes, he was on steroids. You're a disgusting individual when you allow your mistakes and you don't take responsibility for them, I should say. You don't take responsibility for your mistakes. And even worse, you then crash and burn the lives of innocent people just to make yourself look better. It's disgusting. And that's what we're seeing. And again, I brought up the story because how is it you're able to swap one person to another country, but it's impossible to do what the courts are ordering you to do in getting this man back to his family in Maryland, who is rightfully in the United States of America. Just disgusting. But again, the world we live in. With that said, we'll take a quick break here, and then when we come back, we'll talk about marriage. All right, we are back, and let's talk about marriage. Specifically, this article was written from the perspective of women from We Are Me Too, and they ask, is marriage still a good deal for women? There's a lot of topic of conversation, I guess, on TikTok happening, and there's a lot of research going into this conversation. Now, in the article, they talk about how, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics American Time Use Survey, that's a mouthful, employed women will work a full day, around 7 hours and 20 minutes, while also doing more childcare and household chores than men. This includes cooking, cleaning, and parenting. Men, on average, do less of all three. As women's work hours increase, their sleep and leisure time have decreased. The pressure is so intense that even rest is a luxury. Yet, many women still feel like marriage is a requirement, not a choice. Now, I'll pause here for a second. Absolutely. And I don't mean absolutely like this is a good thing. I mean, I get it. I lived this. My parents, and not that I don't think my mom, no shame to anybody who does, but my mom is just not that personality. But my mom worked full-time. My dad worked full-time. And my mom commuted to the Bronx every day from New Jersey and was a teacher dealing with kids all day long. And she was still expected to maintain the house, to clean, and to do the bulk of the work when it came to parenting the children. Not to say that my dad wasn't there, but if we're comparing, he had the easier, role of the two of them. And that was the norm. And nobody even thought twice about, like, hey, I wonder what mom's going through, right? And that's how I grew up. And that's what I saw as normal. Now, I'm blessed that I feel like I've had enough life experience where I can recognize, wow, that is not okay. And I'm not married, I'm speaking from a single perspective. I don't have any kids either. But, yeah, that doesn't sound like a deal that I would want to get into if I was a woman. And we've normalized that wrongly. And I think as a result, you're seeing a lot of women burnt out from their relationship more so than men, or B, reflecting on if they really want to get married or not. Now, the article goes on to say, and it's a longer article, as I always do, you'll have the link in the show notes if you really want to dive into it, but they say, despite lingering stigma, divorce is increasingly being reframed as a liberating decision. According to a study from Kingston University in London, women are significantly happier for up to 5 years post-divorce. Why? Freedom, autonomy, a shot at career growth and personal fulfillment. They say that 69% of divorces are initiated by women. Many people say they feel lonelier in marriage than they ever did when they were single. This is heavy shit. And it speaks to a lot of different things, right? And I found this sort of article I think, a fascinating topic of conversation. But I think that sort of stuck out to me, the idea that many people feel lonelier in marriage than they ever did when they were single. And I have so many thoughts. Like, there's so many angles you can kind of take with this. I think what's immediately going through my head as I think about this, I think a lot of people, particularly of my generation, got married way too young or without enough life experience. I think that's one of the issues. I'm at the age now where a lot of my friends, not a lot, but a good chunk of friends that got married are now going through a divorce or are already divorced. You know, I think it's an interesting conversation around the idea, and they said this in the article, that marriage is a requirement, right? A lot of people, as with anything in life, trying to do the quote-unquote right thing and check a particular box, and maybe not knowing what their boxes are, right? Like what their thing is that they are looking for in a partner, or maybe not even having developed enough to know what real partnership is. And obviously there are some people who are blessed that they've been able to develop together in marriage and that they're both on the same page of understanding their flaws and shortcomings and wanting to get better and be better partners for one another, right? That's the goal, the dream. But there are probably a lot of people, and obviously with these divorce rates, a lot of people who, don't want to do the work or are unaware that there's a problem in general, that they have a really skewed view of what it means to be in a relationship and don't know what it means to truly be in partnership, or maybe don't even know themselves enough to know what they really want from said relationship. And, you know, I'll still claim mid-30s at this point. I'm on the cusp mid to late 30s, y'all. Right? I'm going to hold on to mid-30s for a second. Give me one more year. But I do feel the pressure, right? I get it from family, and in general, when I think about wanting to start a family, the idea of being the old parent, and I feel that pressure. But also, I've gotten to know myself and done so much work and not rushed into things for the sake of checking boxes. And of course I have at times, but I've never, pulled that trigger. That I have far more clarity on what I want and far more clarity on what I don't want. And I could see what I don't want coming a mile away. And even like single me, and I don't know why this is now, this is like my deposition. Play this for my family to explain why their son is still single. Or why my niece and nephew don't have cousins to play with on my end. But even now, like, single me is different than single me, whatever it was, 6 years ago. I'm not even entertaining people casually that I don't feel like I can hold a conversation with, right? Even if you're attractive, I'm so weary of, like, Yeah, but what happens after the sex? I don't want to have an awkward car ride home or an awkward morning, or I just don't want somebody I don't really fuck with on a personal level being in my home. Right? That supersedes the physical, pleasure of sex. And that's where I'm at. And I think when you are clear on what you want, clear on what you don't want, it's you're not going to be entertaining everything, and rightfully so, you shouldn't be. But also that means you're going to have a hard time finding that other person just because you're fine-tuning what you're looking for, right? So the results are getting fewer and fewer, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just a part of the process of truly, I think, finding what you're looking for in a soulmate and a long-term partner. Now, I think that's one aspect of it, is people got into relationships young, weren't clear on what they wanted, what they didn't want. And now they're far more clear as they've gotten older and far less tolerant of things that don't align with that. I think also, as I mentioned, a lot of us just don't know or didn't grow up seeing examples of what it meant to be truly in partnership. Right? A lot of, especially I think in the Latin community, a lot of the old school dialogue of traditional gender roles of the wife maintains the house and mostly parents the kids. And as economic turns have happened and things are far more expensive, most families have no choice but to have two working, parents. And rightfully so, many women want to be able to explore their interest as far as career goes. But we haven't sort of adjusted, but what does that mean then in the traditional sense of the gender role in the household? That has to be adjusted as well. Because it's not fair to say, okay, yeah, you can go and experience your own life, or yeah, we need you to work because we need extra money. But don't forget, I still expect you to do the traditional role as well. So not only are you doing sort of my traditional role, on top of that, you're doing your role. You're doing two roles at the same time, essentially. And it's unfair, and I can see why women are at a higher rate initiating divorce than men. We have it easy. And I think that's probably part of the problem as well, is there's not real conversations around, or as men not having real conversations of how do we be better partners and not place these unrealistic expectations on our wives, essentially, right? And I think there's a lot, again, to unlearn. Again, I grew up in that, and I didn't see anything wrong with it, right? It never fazed me that maybe my mom was burnt out. And I say this like well into adulthood. It didn't stop and faze me. I'm talking about just like a few years ago, I for whatever reason, I started like really having far more appreciation for all that my mom has done and continues to do. And recognizing like, wow, we placed a lot on her fucking shoulders and continue to do so. And she never asked for anything in return. Or never asked for much. Or I don't think she's even aware of how unfair it is, that extra burden. And I think that's something we need, I think we're getting better. I think we're trending in the right direction. But I think that is, these are all contributing factors to why we're probably seeing these staggering divorce rates. Because again, in a good way, as you remove the stigma of divorce, you now allow people to say, hey, I'm not going to waste my life with someone who refuses to get on the same page as me just because I don't want to be torn apart in the court of public opinion. Like, fuck that. I'm going to make the most of this thing called life because it's short. And it's like, as much as it's weirdly like jumps out at you when they say that divorce is being reframed as a liberating decision, I get it. Why stay in a situation that no longer serves you? And I think I guess my hope would be a couple things to make this have a point, I guess. I would hope that the younger generation understands they have time and tries to get to know themselves before jumping into a serious relationship, and understands what they really want, what they need, and what they don't want, and doesn't fall victim to the trap of trying to meet societal expectations, but instead is prioritizing what truly makes them happy. And for people of my generation and older, not taking for granted the gravity of the decision you're making when it comes to breaking off a long-term relationship or divorce, not sort of doing that on impulse. But if you truly feel after some time and some thought that it's the right decision for you, there's no reason to have shame around reclaiming your life and moving forward once you've come to realize what it is that you truly want. This life is incredibly short. And while I don't think the decision again should be taken lightly, it should be taken as a heavy one because it is, and taken with lots of consideration and forethought. If it is the right decision for you, you deserve to be happy. And I think we all need to unlearn a lot of the bullshit from previous generations and think to ourselves about how we can truly show up and look at this as more than just the thing you're supposed to do, but how do we create actual partnership? How do I be good for this other person? And have no shame in saying, hey, maybe it's going to take me longer to find somebody who I truly want to be with, but I'm not going to settle because I'm okay alone as well. There's nothing wrong with being alone. There's nothing wrong with not having kids. I think about this all the time as well. As much as I've sort of always been like, oh, I'm definitely having kids, there's a part of me that says, hey, I'm kind of open to maybe that's, if it's not in the cards, it's not in the cards. I feel like I really want to give it some more thought, to be quite honest with you, rather than just saying it's what I'm supposed to do. Now, I definitely know I want to get married and have a good woman by my side and have a true partnership. But do I know for a fact that I want to have kids? I don't know anymore. And that's a recent revelation. And I'm not guilting myself because I know it's what I'm supposed to do, is have kids and, make my parents happy and give them more, more grandbabies than they have. But I have to think about, what type of life do I want? I kind of like the freedom that I have to have experiences that I want sort of when I want. As selfish as that might sound, I get a lot of enjoyment out of the lifestyle that I live right now. And it's not a lifestyle of like random hookups, getting fucked up all the time or whatever it is, but just the simple freedoms of not having a ton to worry about if I feel like going to travel. If I'm thinking about spending half my time in Puerto Rico, right? I have a dog who I love so much, but as small of a burden as that seems, and I hate to call him a burden, but there's responsibility there. I'm not able to just move the same way as I would have if I didn't have him. And I feel like, he's been a great teacher in that. So yeah, I don't know. Again, you have to do what's best for you. And I guess a lot of people are doing that. And while maybe for traditional standards or, lovers of love, if you will, it might be sad to see people getting divorces or doing these things. Again, I always subscribe to doing what's best for you and getting clear on what actually makes you happy and moving accordingly. And also, I think articles like this one, Statistics, it should make us look in the mirror and say, hey, what bullshit am I carrying around that if I am in a relationship or am in a marriage, that what am I carrying around or doing, or how am I not showing up in a way that's fair, or am I truly making my partner feel seen, right? In our relationship and fulfilling their needs as well, not just thinking about my own. I think as men, we're so used to, we've been ingrained in sort of having the women in our lives be at our beck and call that we don't even think twice about, like, but what are they feeling? What do they actually want? We just assume that that's what they want to do. And maybe sometimes they do, but I can almost guarantee that there are plenty of times where they wish or have wished that someone would do that for them because they truly do deserve it. And again, that's what equal partnership is about. So I don't know, just some interesting food for thought to break up also like just the fucking, I don't know, political toxicity of the world that we live in. With that said, let's talk about some positivity in our Mi Gente segment. But first, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. Mi Gente. All right, so I guess a quick little story here, or a quick article that I found. And I saw it floating around on social media, and I just had to applaud this man. Pedro Pascal. He had a shirt that was speaking in favor of trans rights, and he was wearing it at the UK premiere of the movie Thunderbolts. And this is a simple way of standing up and a simple way of making a declaration, but I think an effective one. And again, when I always harp on anybody with a platform, I think you do have a responsibility. And these are the things I mean when I say that. It doesn't always have to be the most grandiose thing. It could also be just making a statement in a subtle way. Because when you have the platform, it's going to reach a lot of people. Now, he's known for championing LGBTQ plus rights. But he stepped on the red carpet wearing a white tee that simply said, "Protect the dolls," which is a direct and defiant show of support for trans women amid rising global backlash. And the shirt was designed by Connor, I think it's Ives, who debuted it during London Fashion Week in February. The design was a reaction to the mounting anti-trans rhetoric seen both in the U.S. and abroad. Doll is a term of endearment rooted in LGBTQ plus and ballroom culture, specifically referring to trans women. And Ives wasn't the only one making their shirt go viral. Troye Sivan picked it up and wore it during Charli XCX's Coachella set. Tom Ford's creative director, Hader Ackerman, posted a selfie wearing it. Proceeds from the tee go to the shirt, I should say, go to the Trans Lifeline, a nonprofit that provides peer support for trans people in crisis. And even that, right? He's going to wear the shirt. A ton of people are going to see it and go out to buy it, and it raises money for this incredible nonprofit that is advocating for trans people. And this is, again, having a platform and doing it right. It's very simple. These are the types of things that, in my book, get you major points. That you don't have to get into debates. You don't have to always, be out there and picketing or whatever it might be. Everybody has a role that they can play and that they're able to play. And something as simple as this is moving, and it moves the needle. Especially as a Latin man, to come out and have that support, that continued support, I should say. It's a beautiful thing. There's so much stigma, and to their point, there's so much anti-trans rhetoric, particularly in our political environment. And these are just people who are trying to live life in the best way that they see fit for them. And they're not doing anything that imposes on your way of living, your quality of life. And that's the fucked up part about all of the anti-LGBTQ plus backlash that we see, all the anti-immigrant backlash. Like, these are people just trying to live their life. They're not hurting you. They're not doing anything to directly affect your quality of life, yet you are targeting them, be it the rhetoric, be it your actions, and impeding on their ability to live a happy life. That's the difference. They're not doing that to you. You're doing it to them. You're seeking them out. And it's crazy that in 2025, we still have people with so much hate in their heart. And I'm a bit spoiled because I've grown up in the New York City area. I had family members who were gay. My uncle, my parents, to their credit, were very progressive for their time period. I was in my uncle's wedding as a little kid. I think I was the ring bearer, right? And for a gay wedding. And then growing up in the New York City area, and then as I'm older, being asked to be a part of events like Pride in New York City and DJ, and in Jersey City, one of my residencies is at a gay club, at a LGBTQ plus club, and a lot of friends I've made there are gay, and some are trans, and it's just crazy that people can look past the fact that these are people just like you and I. And they're not asking for some special treatment. They're just asking for you not to condemn them and not to impede on their ability to live a quality life. And there are so many stories that break my heart about what they had to go through just to be able to walk in their authenticity. And I think that's probably what touches me the most is, as you all know, authenticity is really at the center of so much of what I do. And my inability to walk authentically is such a big part of my story. And I think that's why I relate and have such a soft spot outside of the human element, but I relate on a deeper level. Is because of that. And last thing I'll mention on this, I've been seeing clips go around. Pete Buttigieg, Mayor Pete, he ran for president for the 2020 election, and then he worked under Biden, and he's one of the more prominent Democrats. But he was on Andrew Schultz's podcast, and yeah, I know there's a lot of where Andrew Schultz has gone. There's a lot of opinions on that. That's a different conversation. But anyway, Pete Buttigieg is a veteran. He did, I believe, 2 tours of duty in Iraq. He got deployed while he was the mayor in Indiana. And he talks about, if I'm not mistaken about the timeline, when he was deployed, he hadn't come out as gay yet. And if I'm not mistaken, when you get deployed, the Army has you write a letter, essentially, just in case you don't get to return home. It's you writing a letter to your family, essentially. And he hadn't come out as gay yet. And I believe he talks about how in the letter he admits that he's gay, right? And it's this letter that won't be sent to anybody unless something happens to him. But essentially it's him speaking his truth for the first time. And he talks about how here he was, an adult male. I believe at this point he's 29 or 30. And he has yet to experience love because he hasn't come out. And he told himself that if and when I get back home, I'm not going to hide anymore. I want to experience love. I want to have a family. And do all the things that all of us, I think, strive for. And I just find that to be so heartbreaking in so many different ways. And obviously it's a few years back at this point, but still current enough that it's wild that was even a thing. But these are people who are holding back and not able to live their lives as themselves because of all the bullshit and narratives that we create and that we give into, and the hate that exists. And that's not okay. It's incredibly sad. And, that's why it's important to speak up for any marginalized community. Nobody should have to live in the shadows or live in fear. Everybody deserves the right to a happy and high quality life. With that said, let's tie everything we talked about today in a neat little bow in a segment we call Conclusions, Stu.
Time for conclusions, Stu.
All right, quickly summarizing all we talked about. Trump obviously doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's now backing down on the crazy tariff rate that he had with China. Shocker. More Trump being Trump. He does something crazy, realizes he has no idea what he's doing, it blows up his face, and he has to backtrack. They put some sort of stupid spin on it. They will frame this as a win somehow, even though it's not. And this is, unfortunately, the cycle we're trapped into for the next 4 years. Presidents of El Salvador and Venezuela going at it, having Twitter fingers. Essentially, I bring up this article again because the president of El Salvador, who said it's impossible for him to return, even though there's a Supreme Court order on this, it's impossible for him to return the man who was wrongly deported from Maryland. He can't get him back to the U.S. It's just impossible. Somehow, some way, it's possible, though, for him to send prisoners from those same prisons to Venezuela, another country. Make it make sense. The conversation around marriage, at the end of the day, you have to do what is best for you. And I think, again, it's a two-pronged conversation. We have to all learn how to be better partners, and I think more than anything, men unlearning some of the toxic masculinity or the traditional gender roles, and not saying we lose those. I think there's positives to it, but adjusting what those roles literally are, with the understanding that we live in a world where, for many of us, our wives or our partners are also going to be working career-wise just as hard as us, if not harder. And we need to pick up some of the shit that they have to deal with, right? And we need to do more than we've traditionally been asked for as a result, because they're doing more. And on the flip side of it, you have to be unafraid to do what really makes you happy and not allow yourself to, jump into a situation just because it's the quote-unquote right thing to do, but B, not stay in a bad situation because you're scared of the public scrutiny. You deserve the right to be happy. Be patient when it comes to waiting for the right situation, but also be unafraid to get out of the wrong situation. And then, lastly, the story with Pedro Pascal and the shirt. Again, it's to me, it's somebody using their platform for good. This conversation or this anti-trans rhetoric, anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, it's disgusting. And I understand for some people how it may be jarring for you. And I don't even like that word sounds a bit harsh when I'm talking about just people living their life, but let's have a real conversation. I understand if you didn't grow up around it, and this is in general, anything different is going to be a bit jarring to you and uncomfortable to you. I don't think that makes you a bigot. It doesn't make you a bad person. What makes you a bigot or a bad person is when you think that your discomfort supersedes or should dictate how someone else lives their life. And that is where a lot of people fail and a lot of people choose to fall back into their ignorance. Not for nothing, there's a lot of straight couples. I have no interest in seeing them be affectionate with one another. Let's call it what it is. I don't want to see y'all kiss. So, with that said, just because I don't want to see it, doesn't mean you don't have the right to kiss your loved one in public. And I have the mindset of knowing, even though I don't want to see it, you still have every right to do that, right? It's supposed to be a free country. It's supposed to be a world of live your life, man. As long as it's not, impeding on my ability to live my life, you live your life. And that should be the same mindset if it's same-sex couples or if it is a trans person. Let them live their life. Your lack of understanding of who they are and what they believe or them loving who they want to love, that's not their problem. And it's unfair to make it their problem. And it's disgusting to make it their problem and to then impede on their ability to be happy and just live life authentically. None of us should be living in the shadows in 2025. None of us. Again, you don't have to understand it. And quite frankly, you don't even have to accept it if you have some sort of religious feeling behind it. But it's not for you to judge. If you believe in God and you believe that God is against that, let God handle that when it's time. This is the other thing I don't get about religion. And listen, I'm a religious person. But it's not up to me and it's not for me to judge others. That's God's job. That's it. I can have my feelings about why certain things might be wrong or that I think certain people are living, lifestyles that I don't agree with. But it's not up to me to go there and tell them not to live a certain life or to change the way that they're carrying about their everyday. No. Listen, it's not for me, but you do you. And if it's truly wrong in God's eyes, let him handle that. He's not asking me to do that. He's not asking me to judge others on behalf of him. He'll handle that if that's what you believe. So regardless if, you are like religious and you're against it from that standpoint, let God do what God's going to do. You go on with the fucking rest of your day and leave these people be. Leave people to live life how they want to live. Right? Somebody's wearing an outfit you don't like, leave these people to dress how they want to dress. When I say these people, I mean people you're encountering, any kind of people who have any sexual preference and identify in any sort of way. It's not up to you to impose your opinion on anything, on anyone else. You're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to force it on anyone else or impede on anybody else's ability to live their life. That's what we all have to start wrapping our brain around. It's okay to have different opinions, but it's not okay to not respect other people's ability to live a high quality life and life on their terms. And that's all I say about that. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I appreciate y'all. 2.5 weeks left of Life As A Gringo. Fucking wild. Thank y'all so much who have been on this journey. Welcome to our new listeners. Keep checking out the feed. Stay subscribed. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because I'm excited for what's next. And there is something next. That's all I can say. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Have an amazing weekend. I'll catch you on Tuesday with a brand new episode. Till then, stay safe and we'll talk soon. Peace.